Hey guys, Buffing Game back today, bringing you a video, and today we're going to be covering some more Modern Warfare 2 news that was released today and yesterday by some leakers over in the Twitterverse, the COD community. Mainly, Tom Henderson is who I'm piggybacking the information off of. He provided information for a VGC article, which is written. I'll link that down below. So this video will piggyback off my previous video that we did on Modern Warfare 2 leaks. I did that back in early September, titled Modern Warfare 2 2022 is Sicario. I'll link that down below also. However, we will recap that here. And it seems like, especially with the latest Modern Warfare 2 news, that video has definitely continued to pick up a lot of traffic. That video did very well for my channel lately. So going into the new news that we have here regarding Modern Warfare 2. First off, Tom Henderson states that the title will be Modern Warfare 2. However, it will not be the numeric 2. It'll be more of the Roman numeral 2 is how it should be labeled for the title. However, that's all just speculation. But a lot of information we have. First off, to recap what we covered in the last video, the campaign itself will focus on the drug war in Colombia against the cartels. So it'll basically be pitting Task Force 141 outside of the combat type environment we saw them in Modern Warfare 2019, or at least the early formation of Task Force 141, and put them now into a war against the Colombian cartels. Apparently, whether it's in Colombia for the entirety of the campaign is yet to be determined. However, the focus of that, or at least the backdrop, will be against the Colombian cartels and the drug war in Colombia. Now, one thing to note here, I cited a few examples in my last video. Obviously, Sicario being in the title, being one of the main influences here. Sicario, the movies there, obviously focused not in Colombia, but in Mexico. So that's a huge influence that I believe the campaign will probably center around. It feels like that's almost your Modern Warfare type storyline. Josh Brolin character, Benicio del Toro, Emily Blunt. Similar type of character journeys and formations of the teams that way could make a very compelling story. However, you do have other things like Ghost Recon Wildlands also making basically the same exact storyline in Colombia against the cartels. And that was an open world type environment, which we'll get into that. We may see something similar to that here. And another reference would be Harrison Ford's 1996 movie, I believe it was, Clear and Present Danger. And in that movie, the Colombian cartels assassinate somebody they were doing business with, and that individual happens to be a good friend of the President of the United States, who then they covertly greenlight an operation to send in special forces into Colombia and basically sabotage the drug trafficking trade and business over there, and kind of sabotage the cartels, pin them against each other, get the cartel leaders in one spot, and try and take them all out. So that's kind of a similar, I would say we're going to see a lot of campaign beats from probably all three of those stories. Now, some new details for Modern Warfare 2 in 2022, basically confirming that there is some inside sources that Tom Henderson is talking to here, saying that the 2022 game is in fact called Modern Warfare 2, numeric 2, or not numeric 2, but Roman numeral 2. So some features that the campaign will take on is some new features that they've added from Modern Warfare 2019. A few of those being a gritty take on Modern Warfare's 2019's campaign. So there's going to be more close quarters combat, tricky decision making, and classic COD moments that we've seen in a lot of Call of Duties. However, the two main missions from Modern Warfare 2019, I believe, were Clean House and the Wolf's Den. Those were very CQC, or close combat type campaign storylines, which we should probably be seeing a lot of that. It's kind of what they're saying, or at least more of that throughout the game. The campaign will obviously heavily feature Task Force 141, where you will be playing as a member of Task Force 141, and you'll be seeing them in their entirety from the formation at the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare's 2019 campaign. So you'll be seeing that whole cast in the game here for 2022's Modern Warfare 2. Now, some new gameplay features they've added are going to be weapon jamming. So this is actually a pretty cool feature. Now, these are campaign specific, but weapon jamming, this is something that I would have really liked to see in Modern Warfare 2019 or even Warzone. Basically a full automatic penalty. Depending on what kind of weapon you're using, your weapon could jam, like an AK-47 or an AKM, AK-12, whatever they have in this game. Could have potentially like a stovepipe jam, and you'll have to clear that before getting back into action. So weapon jamming could be an interesting feature depending on how they use it. Now, whether or not this is throughout the entirety of the campaign or just a few specific levels, it's not clear. However, this is a feature that will be in the campaign for Modern Warfare 2, which is cool. Now, there'll also be a morality system. So, obviously, in Modern Warfare 2019, there was a few moments where you had to make some decisions, and you weren't really punished regarding what decision you made. However, obviously, if in the Clean House mission, if you ended up trying to shoot the mother of the baby, the mission would typically just end, I believe. But there'll be a morality system, and that may carry on and follow you throughout the entirety of the campaign. There will also be character shaking, so your character can experience fear based on what's happening in the moment, what kind of combat situation. So the character could be shaking, the voice of the character could be trembling in the campaign, and your hand shaking, throwing off your aim, making you a little bit unsteady. Now again, that sounds more like maybe one specific or a few specific campaign levels, but again, this could be a feature throughout the entirety of the campaign. It could be maybe a fear meter or something like that, which may be dependent on your morality system, which in turn will influence how shaky your character is or how you perform under pressure of combat. Next up is Gore. So Gore is going to be more prevalent in the campaign for Modern Warfare 2 here in 2022. Now, Modern Warfare 2019 did have a decent amount of gore. There was obviously some moments like the Clean House missions. Everyone was kind of shocked when that first came out, apparently. However, it seems like there needs to be more of that. If you're making a game called Modern Warfare, that's what you want, is tactical, boots on the ground, gritty type experiences. And that's really what I think the game was going for. And it's good to hear that they're going to be taking that to the next level with these new features. The game will also feature Revamped AI, or artificial intelligence. So in the campaign specifically, you'll be fighting against smarter AI, and when they're injured, they will hold their wound. It will cripple them. If you're shot in the leg, they won't be running around or limping around. They'll be holding where they're hit. They'll be yelling at you, things like that. So it'll add more immersion, and I would say also some sort of realistic factor as well, depending on where you're hitting them. Weapon ballistics will also be based on the caliber. So if we look at Modern Warfare 2019, they kind of said that when the game was coming out, that different weapon ballistics based on the caliber will be present, and it seems like that was maybe even just the campaign, if that. If you look at something like 5.56 rifles, specifically in Warzone, versus 7.62 by 51mm rifles, there's a huge caliber difference. And I remember in Warzone specifically, my 5.56 rifle couldn't penetrate through a wooden fence, but a 9mm MP5 could. So hopefully they get that right this time around, whether it's just for the campaign or hopefully it carries over into the multiplayer. I'd like to see a 7.62 by 51mm, like a SCAR weapon, hit hard like a 7.62 should, versus just kind of being reliant on only 5.56 weapons in the game as the one-all be-all meta type experience that we saw with Modern Warfare's Warzone experience. So moving on, obviously we're going to have a new Warzone map that will launch with Modern Warfare 2 in 2022. Now, it's rumored right now that this map will basically take all the multiplayer maps from the classic Modern Warfare 2 in 2009 and stitch all those together for a full-scale new Warzone map. Now, I'm assuming here, based on this information, it wouldn't really make sense that they would exclude all of the locations in the upcoming Modern Warfare 2 for old assets. So I'm assuming really what we're going to see is maybe something like Ghost Recon Wildlands, where you're in Colombia and inside of the Colombia. If you look at Wildlands, they did a really good job. The scale of that map was huge, but I'm assuming they may do something like that where you're in Colombia for the Warzone map, and there will be different locations that are similar to the locations or POIs you saw in the classic 2009 Modern Warfare 2. And I think Black Ops 4's Blackout is a good example of that. That Blackout map, while the map itself was fictional, the locations or POIs on that map were taken from old Black Ops multiplayer maps. So they were able to stick those in and kind of blend them all together for this new map. So I'm assuming we're going to see something like that for the new Warzone map. It'll probably be something to do with all of the campaign missions, just like we saw with the Spec Ops maps making up the original Warzone Verdansk. I'm assuming we'll see something along the same lines with POIs from the classic Modern Warfare 2 sprinkled in to give us that kind of nostalgia type feeling while playing on this map. Next up, there's going to be a third mode. Now, this would kind of be replacing your Spec Ops or the Zombies type mode that's been coming out of late. So Spec Ops obviously with Modern Warfare 2019, and then Zombies with Cold War, and now Vanguard being that third mode. So the new third mode will be a PvPvE, so player versus environment game mode. Now this is going to be similar, it's described to be similar as Hazard Zone, or obviously Tarkov style game modes, where you go in with probably you and a select few as a squad. There's going to be an objective. Whether or not you get into engagements is entirely up to you. And now those engagements could consist of enemy AI on the map, or you could run into another player squad and decide if you want to take that fight or not. There's going to be a risk and reward element typically to these kind of game modes. Is, do we risk the fight for the reward? it makes you really think before getting into gunfights, something like Tarkov, and we'll see how Hazard Zone goes, but you definitely need to think before getting into firefights in a game like Tarkov and make sure you're coordinating with your team. And it may not always suit you to get into firefights because there's a risk of losing all your gear if you don't get out of that raid. So if you go in to complete an objective and you have gotten that reward, it may not be worth it to stick around and try and fight. You may want to just get out of there as quick as possible. So that may be the type of mode we end up seeing here. Again, it's described to be similar to Hazard Zone, and I'm throwing in Tarkov there because Tarkov, I think, is the best example of a PvPvE mode that we've seen to date, really, as far as the risk-reward system. So I think that would be a very good game mode for this. This is kind of what I wanted to see with Modern Warfare 2019's Spec Ops mode. However, that was just more so, obviously, enemy AI. There was no real substance to that mode. So hopefully this PvPvE mode offers something with more team play, which I really like with PvPvE modes, offers more team play, communication, things like that. I'm over here playing Insurgency Sandstorm on consoles now, only playing against enemy AI, so it's PvE, so a group of 8 players against enemy AI. The communication and coordination is so fun in that game mode. I just love playing with other players in that entirely against enemy AI. It makes it a lot more fun and immersive. So to throw that in and then have other enemy squads out there just would make it take that, I guess, the interest level and the immersion to the next level and make that game mode a lot more fun. Now, it's also described that we will be seeing original 2009's Modern Warfare content remastered within this game. So we'll see kind of remastered multiplayer maps, weapons, and more will be featured in Modern Warfare 2 here in 2022. And if you go back to the Modern Warfare 2 campaign that was just remastered this past year, they did say that they were going to bring over a lot of those weapons bring those weapons back in, remastered, and sell them as packs for Modern Warfare 2019, and that never happened. So it seems like these are things that are probably already done, and they're just going to be able to put them into the Battle Pass, put them in the store, things like that. So there should be a lot more content. You have original Modern Warfare 2 maps to be featured, the weapons, as well as probably operators and character skins and things like that from the campaign mode of the original game as well. So that's all the information we have here today with Modern Warfare 2. Let me know what you guys think down below of Modern Warfare 2022 news. Till next time, Buckner Gaming, out.